Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to our first episode of our brand new podcast. We have a couple of marine biologists here with me, Eric Austin Yee and Katlyn Taylor.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
And we have myself, a marine wildlife photographer. My name is Slater Moore. We were hanging out last night watching the movie, and we decided that'd be a cool idea if we could all get together once a week and create a podcast that's kind of based on whale watching, marine biology, maybe photography, and just some topics related to the ocean. So here we are, and let's jump right into this.
Woohoo!
Go for it. Let's talk whales.
All right, so we decided our first topic would be whale watching along the California coast, and we didn't put any bullet points under that, so we don't know where this is going to go. But we think maybe we can start off by talking about maybe the best time of year to go whale watching here in California. All right, so we'll have Eric talk about his whale watching experiences in the Southern California, Orange County range, and maybe we can have Katlyn talk about her experiences in the Monterey Bay. Eric, what do you think about whale watching along the California coast?
California coast, well, as far as Southern California goes, where I was based out for a while, weather, I mean, you can't beat the weather and ocean conditions now that I worked up and down the coast. I wore flip-flops, shorts, t-shirts pretty much year-round in Southern California. The ocean is a lake compared to where I work now. As far as sighting goes, I can definitely see a difference. So you often get asked when's the best season. Summertime, especially the last few years, we've really seen an increase of humpbacks in the area. And then during the fall, you really do get this lull where you're just looking forward to seeing common dolphins, but your bigger cetaceans, your humpbacks and your blue whales are kind of a little thin during the fall. But once it starts cooling down, the gray whales really start picking up. So that's one thing I noticed about Southern California, but I'm sure Katlyn can talk about other parts of California where it seems like there's more consistent sightings year-round.
So, what I would say, first of all, about Monterey Bay is any day could be the best day to go whale watching. We're pretty darn spoiled in Monterey Bay. We do get whales year-round. Most companies actually guarantee a sighting year-round, which is pretty crazy. There's not really any other place on Earth like that. There's definitely peaks, though. And one of the slower times that I've experienced in the last 5 years, which is a little biased because it's changed a lot in the last 10 years, is June can be kind of slow. It can be incredible, but it also can be pretty slow, and the weather can be pretty rough. The humpbacks kind of settle in, check in May, April and May, and then they disappear in June and come back in July and really hang around till late October, early November. There can be a little bit of a gap in November depending on when the gray whales decide to start showing up. And then the gray whales are pretty consistent end of December all the way through March. And April and May can also be the best time to see killer whales. Blue whales, it really depends on the year. Some years they're here in March and then they're here to stay. Some years there's a big pulse where they show up for 3 weeks in May and then you don't see them the rest of the season. Just depends on the krill. But any day could be your Nat Geo day where you saw 10 species of cetaceans, 4 other species of mammals. You saw killer whales punching a dolphin in the air. You just never quite know what's going to happen, and it's pretty awesome to have that possibility any day of the year.
Yeah.
Well, both of those places are definitely some of my favorites to photograph whales and dolphins.
Yeah, we got to keep in mind, too, that, you'll read field guides or textbooks. They'll tell you whales show up this time of year in this area, but, the animals don't have these field guides. They don't have a calendar.
And with the population's growing, some of them.
Yeah,
like
things
the humpback.
change. Yeah, I know I mentioned how back in Southern California, humpbacks were usually a summer thing, but I'm, looking at some of our fellow whale watchers down in Southern California right now are literally today, I think, saw humpbacks even the last...
Yeah, Oceanside, you see that?
Yeah, the last 2 days have seen humpbacks, so you just never know out there what's going to happen. I think the water's also stayed kind of warm this year.
So basically, as long as the weather's good, it's pretty much a good time to go whale watching in California. You might not always get a bigger baleen whale in the Southern California part of the coast. It might just be some common dolphins or maybe Pacific white-sided dolphins during the winter months. But you never know. If you don't go out there, you won't see anything. So it's definitely always a good time to go. And since it's gray whale season going on right now, and it's actually kind of the heart of it, maybe we can talk about gray whales migrating along the California coast and how it can differ from the Monterey Bay versus Southern California. Maybe how they act and, just the whole migration.
Cool. One thing that I've noticed, and I think all three of us have discussed this, was the activity level of the gray whales. We do know gray whales are pretty slow, traveling in single-digit speeds all the time. And here, we pretty much just see them traveling.
They definitely don't stop to hang around and play around as much as I've noticed they do in Southern California.
Yeah, but during the northbound migration, we do see them get frisky out here. But as far as breaching and spy hopping goes, I remember seeing that a lot more down south. I really don't know what it is. I'm just wondering if they're being a little bit more stealthy coming through the Monterey Bay area.
I think they can feel maybe the water temperature is getting a little warmer.
Maybe they had previous incidents with some of our bigs out here or something like that. So
bigs are transient killer whales for those of you who don't know.
So maybe they go in stealth mode.
What do you think? Katlyn's been in Monterey for 5 years now?
Yeah. What I tell people is on the southbound migration, they're very business oriented when they're in Monterey. They're still far enough away from the party that they're like, we gotta go. And that seems to be, their behavior. Oftentimes we don't see them breaching. We don't see them stopping to roll around. They're just like, they gotta get down the coast. On the southbound migration. On the northbound migration, that's when you get friendly gray whale encounters. You see them rolling around with each other. Sometimes you see mating. Well,
some courtship going
displays. I don't know if they're actually mating, but they're showing off.
Drone
spy
says otherwise.
hopping, breaching.
What are they showing off, Katlyn?
Well, you can definitely tell
showing
who's
off
male
their
and
dance
who's
moves.
not. They're definitely showing the Pink Floyd there. And on the northbound migration, if you're watching them from shore, like in Big Sur, and you're up above them, a lot of times you'll see them stop and play in the kelp or just pace back and forth on the shore a lot, and they don't really seem to be in a hurry, at least until they get to Monterey Bay. Once they're crossing Point Pinos on the northbound migration, they're almost impossible to watch. They start snorkeling. They keep a very low profile. It's really hard. Even without a calf, the adults are not messing around once they get past Point Pinos on their way up to the other side of the bay.
And I think that the gray whale northbound part of the gray whale migration along the Southern California coast is probably one of the best places to watch the gray whales, being that there's a lot of beaches with open just sand and no rocks, and these gray whales love to stop and kind of roll around. Maybe if they have their young, a calf, you see them practicing buoyancy control and stuff like that, blowing bubbles and just all sorts of cool stuff. So it's, in my opinion, one of the best places to watch the northbound part of the gray whale migration is definitely in the Southern California coast. That doesn't mean it's bad to go whale watching in Monterey or Central California during this time. It just means you're going to be seeing a completely different behavior from the gray whales, and you might also be seeing a killer whale predation among these gray whales. And Katlyn has definitely seen plenty of those, so maybe she can talk a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so the reason why even the adults do not stop and play around in Monterey Bay on the northbound migration is because Monterey Bay is one of the first deep water obstacles they have to cross when they're a calf with their mom. They're only about 3, maybe 4 months old when they're coming through the bay. And it's very deep water, and it's very deep water close to shore. So it gets a little tricky because there's some very intelligent animals out there known as killer whales. We see transient or Biggs killer whales most often in Central California, especially Monterey Bay. Because of that deep canyon, they seem to use it as a trap. So the killer whales have figured out that if they can isolate a mom and calf out over the middle of the canyon, there's no escape, because the mom wants to run near shore with her calf and try and escape from the killer whales, so they get in really shallow water, they almost beach themselves, and then they can rest, and the killer whales will give up. But the killer whales know that if they can sneak up on the gray whale mom and calf pair in deep water, then there's no escape, and they eventually will separate the calf from the mom and eat the calf. We have seen escapes. Sometimes the gray whale mom does a really good job, hustles all the way into shore for several hours, but I have seen my fair share of successful hunts as well. And it's pretty traumatizing. Sometimes the mom even just like pouts and like will lay upside down for 15 minutes, or will charge at boats, charge at the killer whales. Sometimes they take off so quick you forgot they were there. And a lot of gray whales do have scars from encounters with killer whales at some point in their life.
Yeah, I mean, me having worked in the South and now coming to the North, it's two different worlds for the northbound migrations. It's kind of crazy. I remember down south, I mean, you would see these moms and calves playing in the coves in the Laguna Beach area, and I don't recall personally seeing a predation event of a calf in Southern California, but I do know it has occurred. I think
it has.
Yeah, I think a number of years ago.
Someone told me that
off
they've
of
never
Point
heard of it.
Vicente. I know the people at the census actually witnessed that years ago.
Was it successful, or was it just a harassment?
I don't recall. We can probably get some input from some of our friends about that. But then moving up here, like last season, I saw more predation events than live calves. I probably saw 2 calves coming up and down our coast, and I saw I think it was 6 predation events looking through my logs. So yeah, it's a whole different world for these calves depending on which part of the coast they're on.
It's funny because when I lived in Southern California, and the killer whales, we don't typically see the killer whales but maybe 1 or 2 times a year down in SoCal, but that has changed. They saw them quite a bit this past year in 2018, but back in 2015 when I'm talking about, I was actually watching a pod of killer whales during the gray whale migration, and a mother and calf on the southbound. Sometimes these gray whales will actually have their calves early. They'll have them before they get down to the lagoons in Baja. And I actually watched this mom and baby pass right past a pod of killer whales, and the killer whales for sure probably knew they were in the area, and didn't do anything. They kept swimming the opposite direction as them. So I think that's pretty crazy to think that they would just pass up an opportunity like that. But talking to someone, they thought maybe there's just not enough.
It's not fat enough.
The baby's too small, and it doesn't have enough, meat for them to eat yet. So I guess that's kind of what happened with that situation. But it's pretty crazy to think they would pass something up like that.
I'm thinking some of our transient pods, even though they're all transients, I think certain pods probably prefer or specialize in certain types of
it was the 51s. So
yeah,
I don't know are they in the predation slot up here?
If they're not in the predation, they are seen eating afterwards.
Yeah, I personally seen the 51s go after sea lions and dolphins back in Southern California. I don't think I've ever seen them with the calves, but I've
seen the 140s are
always
over
after
it.
grays.
I've seen the 51s because the breaching sunset photo I have, the 51s were there that day, and that they were with whoever else was there, which I'm pretty sure was Emma. They were with Emma's pod, I think.
Yeah, Emma's pod I've seen do a lot of takedowns the last 3 or 4 years, or they've been present almost every time there's a carcass. But I've actually seen them take down gray whale calves most of the predation events that I've witnessed. The 51s have been around.
I think they're in the area at the time, probably, but they're not necessarily hunting them.
Sometimes we'll come across a carcass not long after sunrise, so some of this might be happening at night too. So
you think they could take one down at night?
Yeah, I mean they see with sound. They don't need eyesight to figure out where a gray whale mom and calf are.
Maybe a little more energy during the daytime.
Yeah, I mean it does seem like more predations do happen during daylight hours, but there's been a few times where a carcass has been discovered pretty fresh and pretty early in the day where it probably was happening in the dark.
That's amazing. Definitely, if you do come to Monterey for during April and May for the gray whale predation or killer whale predations, keep in mind that it's a pretty intense moment to watch.
Yeah. It's not
crazy. It's not like there's blood spraying everywhere. There definitely can be some blood.
Yeah. But it's definitely a lot of white water, and if you understand what's happening, it's pretty sad.
It makes it more sad.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, you learn things from these experiences that a textbook won't teach you. I mean,
Right.
you really do see the intelligence of our orca.
yeah.
You see the plotting, the planning, the strategies, especially, once you see it more and more, you're like, oh.
Especially
Yeah.
watching it from the drone.
Yeah.
Watching
Yeah,
one
that's what I was
come.
just gonna say.
A
You know,
book
you
will
see
not explain that to you. You gotta
One
watch
killer
it.
whale coming from the left hits it, and then right when it lands, another one coming straight
Yeah.
below. Just the
One of the coolest maneuvers I didn't even think that killer whales did. I didn't notice until Slater filmed it on the drone. You'll see a lot of rake marks, especially on the pectoral fins of the calf. And the killer whales come from underneath, like they come on the ventral side of the gray whale calf, and they grab the opposite pec fin
tug
and they
'em under,
barrel
yeah.
roll it. They
Oh.
rip the fin underneath,
blowhole
and
underwater.
Yeah, they
and
wanna
they
keep the
flip
whale
it over.
upside down.
Yeah, so it'll aspirate. Because that's how killer whales kill their food, is they basically drown it. They don't ever have like a fatal bite. They don't get their food to bleed out because it has thick skin, it has thick blubber, and so they have to drown their prey. And
it definitely can mess up the insides though.
Yeah, and they do quite a bit of internal organ damage as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Slater got a really good video one year where it was just covered in rake marks on the pec fin, and I was like, what the hell are they doing? And then it ripped it from underneath and spun it around, and I was like, oh.
It just what's really crazy to me is watching the mom instantly get back underneath the calf and
Yeah.
lift it up.
She's
Like
so quick.
the mom is just her main goal is to keep that calf above the water and keep it on her back and keep the killer whales away from it, obviously. But it's just amazing that she's trying to fight these killer whales off, flailing her pec fins and her fluke all over
Yeah.
the place while trying to keep the baby up on her back.
Watching her fluke fly while she's holding the calf on her back
Yeah.
is pretty nuts.
They're good moms. But one strategy I noticed, there was that one predation that happened out here. It was that one that occurred right in front of Cannery Row that one year, and we saw
yeah.
that one strategy where it seems like the males and the bigger killer whales were actually keeping the mom back once they eventually had the calf separated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember what you're talking about,
Yeah,
actually.
they tag team. So
Once they already had the calf, right?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, the mom was pissed, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
they
they
were
were like
the
holding
gray
her
whale
back.
mom was pissed.
Yeah, she charged like all because
She was
it was
going
right in
up-
front of the harbor, so there was like 40 boats, and she charged all of them in her eyesight.
Yeah, she charged whatever was in front of her.
She was very mad for like 2 hours afterwards.
And once they get past this scary place in the Monterey Bay, these gray whales continue on and head back to Alaska, the Bering Sea, the Chukchi Sea up there, where they'll continue feeding during the summer months. And once it gets cold and the water starts freezing over, they'll head back this way, and they'll do it all over again.
It's one of the most impressive migrations of any animal, but especially any mammal on Earth. They are making one of the longest trips, and they're fasting during the trip, which kind of goes back to how upset some of the moms get. It's like totally justified. It's a huge sacrifice to migrate while pregnant, give birth, and lactate.
And not eat.
Yeah, and be fasting.
Oh, you
and
said
then
fasting.
you lose the calf. It's like you did all that for nothing.
Yeah.
I want to know if they obviously they care because it was a lot of work, but they seem to just continue on.
Some get real sad.
But think about humpbacks, or I guess any mammal like this. After a year, they pretty much go on a deep dive and they're like, I'm out, and then they leave after it's ready to go on its own.
Yeah. I don't know.
They're gonna leave that whale and never see it again, basically.
I don't think we have the social component figured out too clearly with baleen whales. It does seem like it's kind of cutthroat.
I'm not saying that they don't
I'm done making
care.
milk for you. See you later.
No, I think they do care,
But yeah,
in my opinion.
I mean, I'd be pretty pissed if at 3 months old I lost my kid after 15 months worth of work.
Plus, we
Yeah.
don't actually know if maybe they kick them out after a year, but we don't know if if they come to Monterey Bay every year, they might see each other. So,
Yeah, might run into mom, exactly.
So they might know.
Yeah, and there's other baleen whale populations, like I think of the whales that come to Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary in the Atlantic Ocean off the east coast of the United States. They know their individual whales really well. And so the humpbacks, they do see calves with mom years later, even if mom has another calf. What's happening during that interaction isn't always clear, but I think there's a lot more going on that we just completely miss. And it's kind of hard to keep tabs on individual gray whales, because there's so many. There's a few that really have unique markings, like Scarback was just sighted yesterday or today in Southern California. And some that visit the same area have high sight fidelity. You can kind of keep tabs on them that way. But, you're not keeping track of 25,000 gray whales as individuals anymore. That's crazy.
That Scarback is an amazing whale. I guess the story behind that is in the 80s, this gray whale was hit with an exploding harpoon, but it must have just been lightly into the back, and it kind of just blew out a little bit. It's got a crazy scar on it, very unique. It's easy to spot once you've seen it. I actually saw this whale previously, I think in 2015. So that's almost 4 years now.
I've seen her since
the
early 2000s because I grew up on the Oregon coast, and Scarback's one of those resident whales that feeds in Depot Bay. And she's in the prime of her reproductive years. She has a calf every other year like clockwork. And she's
way older than me.
Yeah, she's older than all of us, maybe. She's been around a long, long time. There's photos of her with the wound in the 80s, but she was already an adult when she had the wound. And Jim Sumich, actually, who a couple of us know, he was one of my professors at Oregon State before he retired. He suspects that the lice on Scarback are part of why she stays alive, because she had that wound never closed on her back. It's an open wound. Some years it looks better than others. Some years it's bleeding all year long.
I feel like it almost
and the
looks
lice keep it
same.
clean and keep it free of infection. So without that good population of whale lice on her back, she may have died from infections from the wound a long time ago, and she's lived with it for almost 30 years.
Have you seen Scarback?
I don't think so.
I feel like it's funny because every time I've seen
I
Scarback,
don't think I've seen her.
they see it in Dana Point like the next hour or the next trip. Eric used to work just 13 miles away from where I worked. I worked in Newport Beach for a long time, and he worked in Dana Point, which is very close to each other. And so a lot of the whales I see, he usually sees them on the next trip.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. So that's pretty cool. Well, I definitely think that covers the majority of the gray whale migration along the California coastline. Would you guys have any extra thoughts on the gray whale migration?
Go watch it. Whether it's from a boat or from land, it's really awesome. Go watch it.
They are definitely not the most acrobatic whale when it comes to the central part of the coast. Like Eric said earlier, you see a lot more breaching and more playful activity down south. But if you don't have super high expectations, you'll definitely enjoy watching them.
And they're so abundant, especially literally
big
right
numbers.
now. Pick any place, around the California coast. I prefer points. I've always mentioned that to people, depending on if you're in Southern California or Central California, any town with the name or location with the name Point, like in the South, Dana Point, Point Vicente. Over
somewhere
here,
that's high up.
Point Pinos, Point Lobos, Point Sur, anywhere high up, is a great place to check these gray whales.
Or just watch them exhaling. You can see tons of spouts all across the ocean right now.
Yeah, and just to show you how well the season is. The last few days, our trips have been seeing whales in the double digits. I mean, 40 whales during the AM trip. So it's definitely something you should all take advantage of. If you get seasick, like I said, this is something you can do from a cliff, and I'm sure somewhere along the California coast, wherever you are, there's one that's probably going to be within your reach.
My gosh.
And another thing I think that's pretty cool about the gray whale migration, the dolphins can really get them going. Pacific white-sided dolphins and the bottlenose, I think, in my opinion, really can get the gray whales in a frisky mood. Same with the common dolphins as well. But a lot of times, if there's a pretty big group of gray whales, 2 or 3 plus, the dolphins can get them all rolling around with each other and just really put on a great show. So that's something really cool that you can get out of the gray whale migration here. When we see humpbacks here during the summer months, they're feeding. They're not really typically they are very acrobatic, don't get me wrong, but they're not typically playing around with dolphins and stuff like that. So that's something really cool that you can get out of the gray whale season.
Yeah, and as far as timing, I mean, anytime in California from like mid-November through June, you have the possibility of seeing a gray whale on the boat or from shore. But as far as the peak of the southbound gray whale migration, which for most of the California coast is easier to see, Northern California, that's like the second week of January. And then Central California, it's usually the third and fourth week. And then as you're getting down towards Southern California, things are kind of happening all the time because they're close to the crossover point, they're close to Baja, but definitely looking around on the coast, you could see them for several months out of the winter time.
Yeah. Moms and calves tend to be the last to leave, so you get this trickle of them through April and into early May even. You'll see some gray whales, and just keep in mind, like I said earlier, whales don't have calendars, so it doesn't just cut off. You just see them slowly thin off, and you'll be surprised. You get these weirdo gray whales pop up in the middle of summer. We don't know if they're early or late.
I saw one at Point Lobos in August, and it did not look like it knew what it was doing.
Yeah, you're like, are you early, late, or sick?
Oh, and they do get lost. That's another thing is sometimes you'll see them going into harbors along the coast, and not just in California, all the way up the coast. Newport Beach has a really long harbor compared to most of the other harbors. LA also has a pretty big one, but we've had them go pretty far deep into the Newport Harbor, which is something kind of odd.
Yeah.
And they'll figure it out. Eventually, they'll be like, okay, this is weird, and then they'll turn around and head back out.
Yeah, and speaking of getting lost thinking globally, there's been gray whales sighted in the Atlantic and in the Mediterranean.
Israel, Spain.
There used to be gray whales in the Atlantic. They were hunted to extinction. But what the working theory is that the few that have been sighted on the other side of the world lately have been Pacific gray whales, that the ice there was a thin enough ice that there was a passage across towards the North Pole. They went up and over and down the Atlantic side.
They were just explorers.
Yeah, they just got turned all the way around. And one of the whales definitely did not look very good. It was really, really thin. But one whale, I mean, heck, it could have gone back around again.
What if he thought he was just a northbounder? Because it's now that, because think about
It's like we've been swimming north a long
Yeah.
time.
but the coast is on his right, but he's going, you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah, I'm just wondering if he
I've
ever.
been going north forever.
I'm wondering if he ever came back over.
It's like on a NASCAR highway. You're making a left turn.
All left turns.
That's pretty funny. Well, we're pretty excited about this podcast. I think we're gonna probably end it around here. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
We can't wait till next week. We're happy to geek out about any whale-related topics.
Yeah, we can even talk about there's always cool stuff happening here. We can talk about latest whale watching news too.
And since this is our first podcast, we can actually ask you guys, what are some topics you would like us to talk about? It doesn't just have to be about the California coast by any means. We like to talk about whales everywhere. And so if you guys have any questions or comments or just things or topics that we can talk about, please let us know. I don't know where this is going to be posted as of right now. So wherever it is, there'll probably be like a comment section or something. So yeah, we look forward for you guys to listen to this, and we look forward to creating for you.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day or night wherever you are, and just be awesome.